What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with my review of the Motorola Moto G 5G 2023. So without further ado, let's get started. So this is the Moto G 5G 2023. Now this phone was recently launched by Motorola in May of 2023, and hence the name of the phone. It is the successor to last year's Moto G 5G 2022. Now we'll be comparing that phone to this phone in a separate video, so certainly stay tuned for that content. But this phone in many ways is quite different from its predecessor. One big way that it's different is that it's a lot more affordable. But in exchange for that, in some areas, they have had to make some compromises. Now this phone features an MSRP of just $249, so it is very affordable. And in addition to that, I'm expecting this phone to be launched on a variety of different carriers as time goes on. Now typically, if you buy a phone through the carrier, you are going to save a lot of money versus buying it factory unlocked. But of course, in exchange for that, you are stuck with using the phone on that particular carrier. So certainly some things worth keeping in mind, but most importantly, I do recommend shopping around to see where you can get the best deal. Now before I get too far into things here with the Moto G 5G 2023, let's see what all comes included in the box. Now this is a pretty interesting box the phone does come in because it's very tall and also a very skinny box. Now it also features plastic-free packaging, which is pretty cool. And then opening up the box, you can see that we're not really getting a whole lot. We are getting a quick start guide here. We're also getting a SIM card removal tool, some regulatory paperwork there too. And then in addition to that, we are getting a USB-C cable for charging and data transfer. But unfortunately, there is no USB wall adapter. Now with this device, we're getting a very large 6.5-inch display. Now this display is IPS LCD, and it does feature a 120Hz refresh rate. So with that faster refresh rate, things essentially run a lot smoother here with the phone compared to a device that has a 60Hz refresh rate, which for a long time, that was pretty much the standard for more entry-level budget devices. So I am glad to see that there are more premium features making their way over to lower-end phones like this one. Now one downside with the display of this device is that it is just 720p. So no 1080p display here. That would have been great, but I suppose to give us everything that they're giving us for just $249, they did have to make some compromises. Now the good news though is that the display still does look good, and it also gets decently bright, and viewing angles are not too bad either. Certainly for phones in this segment, I've used devices with far worse displays, so overall, there's not much I can really complain about here. Now in addition to that, we're getting a 20:9 aspect ratio and an 82.9% screen to body ratio. So pretty small bezels, but the bottom bezel is thicker, but thankfully up top here, we do have a hole punch for the front facing camera. Now the front camera is 8 megapixels, and stay tuned for later on in the video, as I'll be showing you a variety of different photo and video samples from all the various cameras here on the phone. Now internally, with the Moto G 5G 2023, we're getting 128 gigabytes of storage, along with microSD card expansion. Now overall, getting 128 gigs for a phone in this segment is really good. That's a very generous amount of storage, and I think for most people that will be plenty. However, I do recommend seeing how much storage you're using right now on your current device to kind of compare with what you might need with your next smartphone. Because it is possible this might not be enough storage for you, or it might be way more than you even need, and if that's the case, I suppose that's not necessarily a bad thing. Now thankfully with SD card expansion, you can always offload photos and videos, for example, to free up some internal space. Now unfortunately, with this device, there is no wireless charging. However, we do have a fingerprint sensor on the power button. So let's give that a try right now. So that's very quick and accurate. Let's try that one more time. There we go. So that's great. I really like the placement too, and having it be on the power button does make a lot of sense, and that is very convenient. And in addition to that, this phone does support Face Unlock, so I appreciate that we have multiple methods here for accessing the device. Now on the back of the phone, we have a dual camera setup with a 48 megapixel main camera and a 2 megapixel macro camera for close-up images. And despite not having a dedicated depth sensing camera, this phone does support portrait mode for both the rear and front cameras. So if you are a big fan of getting those nice blurred out backgrounds, then just know that this phone can do that. In addition to that, this phone supports 1080p video recording with the front and rear cameras, but unfortunately, it cannot record video in 4K. Now here's how things look on the camera app with the main rear camera. Then from there, we can go to this icon right here to switch to the macro camera, where we can get very close up. In addition to that, we can go over to portrait mode to get those blurred out backgrounds, and then we can flip around to the front facing camera to also take portrait selfies. Now you can of course take selfies outside of portrait mode too if you don't want that effect, so I do appreciate that even though this is a lower end phone from Motorola, we're still getting a lot of different camera features. Now as far as things go with the camera quality with this device, I'll let the results speak for themselves, you can see them right here, but in general, I've been very happy with the quality. Of course, for a phone in this segment, you cannot expect the camera quality to be anywhere near a device that's $1,000, for example. So you're definitely getting what you're paying for, but I also feel like you're getting more than what you're paying for. The results from these various cameras are certainly good enough that if you went on vacation, you could preserve your memories with this device by capturing great looking images. And if you're going to a family reunion or really anything important, the camera quality is certainly good enough here with this phone. Of course, if you want to spend more, you'll get better camera quality, but I think most people that are looking for a phone in this segment just want the cameras to at least be good enough that the results are worth keeping, and if you want to post a photo to social media, for example, it's not going to be embarrassing or really bad. So the good news is that with this device, the camera quality is plenty good. But let's take a look at some video samples from the Moto G 5G 2023. What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with the 1080p front-facing test video from the Motorola Moto G 5G 2023. Let me know what you think about the audio and video quality, as I'm definitely curious to know. And here's a 1080p test video using the main rear camera on the Motorola Moto G 5G 2023. It's the middle of the day right now, so it is very bright outside. So you can probably see the contrast between the shadows and the brighter areas. And we do have very quick autofocus in video mode, which is great. And here's a video using the macro camera on the Moto G 5G 2023. Now internally with this device, we're getting 4 GB of RAM paired up with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 480 Plus 5G. Now there are some benefits with that processor. The first benefit, hence the name of the phone as well, is that it does support 5G connectivity. Now at this point in 2023, I do think you can get by with just 4G LTE, but at the same time, if you're going to go through all the time and effort of getting a brand new smartphone, you may as well get one that does support your carrier's latest and greatest network, because certainly things are moving in the direction of 5G, and that is the future, if not the present already. Now as far as 4 gigs of RAM, I do wish we got a little bit more RAM, but thankfully the processor itself performs nicely, and I haven't really noticed too many major issues. Of course, for a phone in this segment, you should expect to get a little bit of lag here and there, and sometimes things will be a little bit on the slower side, but overall, the phone works perfectly fine, and I think for most people out there, they are going to be completely happy with the performance of it. Now, if you are someone who's using this as a work phone, or maybe you're someone that's just constantly on your phone, then you might want to go for something a bit more advanced to further justify how much time you actually spend on your device. But I think for most people, they just want a good, reliable smartphone for going on social media, doing phone calls, text messages, browsing the web, emails, all that stuff. This phone will be plenty fast. Now, I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 6, and here are the scores that I got from that test. So I got a single core score of 733 and a multi-core score of 1772. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to get a better idea of how the Moto G 5G 2023 compares. Because it's possible this phone might be a lot faster than your current device, but it also might be a downgrade, so you'll definitely want to know. But again, for a phone in this segment meant to be a more affordable 5G device, I do feel like the performance is certainly fast enough. And then having that 120Hz refresh rate also makes things feel a lot smoother as well. So overall, this phone does feel a lot more expensive than it actually is. Now with this phone, we're getting a very large 5000 mAh internal battery, so I do appreciate that we're getting a lot of battery capacity. So you'll easily get a full day, if not multiple days of usage out of this phone. So just know that if you are concerned about battery life, that's not a concern with the Moto G 5G 2023. Another thing that shouldn't be a concern in some ways is the software. Now the bad news is, Motorola doesn't really have a great track record of giving their phones newer versions of Android, and if they do, it's certainly not very timely. But this phone does feature Android 13 out of the box, and the way that Motorola does their software, they basically take the best of stock Android and just add in bonus features. They're not really changing Android just for the sake of changing it, which is good, so there's no gimmicks here, but at the same time, you are getting more useful features with this device than you would with a phone that just had regular Android without any modifications at all. And then also, Motorola always does a great job optimizing their software really well, so it's very free of bugs, and I couldn't find any bugs to that matter. So overall, their update calendar could be a bit better, but if you're happy with the software that comes on the device shipped, then you won't have any complaints. Probably the biggest issue for this phone with me though is that there is no NFC. Now, if you're not familiar with NFC, that is the technology used for mobile contactless payments to do tap and pay with your device. So you cannot do that, unfortunately. So if you want to use Google Pay at a point of sale, maybe you're at the grocery store and you want to use your phone to check out, you can't do that. So the NFC chip is not in this phone. They just chose not to include it, probably to save money. But I feel like in 2023, that's a very useful feature more now than ever. Pretty much most places accept NFC payments. So it is disappointing that we're not getting that here. But on a more positive note, something that's nice to see with this phone is that we are getting stereo speakers. So we're getting audio out of both the main speaker on the bottom and the earpiece as well when doing things like watching videos or listening to music. So that's good in multiple ways. The first way it's good is because you're getting more immersive audio because you're getting multiple audio sources. But the other good thing about it too is that overall, the phone does get a lot louder compared to other phones that don't have stereo speakers. The campus is mostly just forest or just open land like this, but I'm gonna head over to those buildings right now and see what's going on. So this is an excellent phone for watching video content, as you probably noticed. It has a great large display at 6.5 inches. Of course, if the display was AMOLED or something like that, that would be better, but for what it is, I think it's plenty good. And even though it is 720p, video still does look really clear on here. So overall, it's an excellent phone if you just want to sit back, relax, and watch video content. But taking a closer look at the hardware of the Moto G 5G 2023, this phone is made completely of plastic, which is unfortunate in some ways, but not unexpected for a phone in this segment. One thing I really do like though is that the back panel of this phone has a frosted finish, so it doesn't really pick up any fingerprints, which is great, unlike other phones that have a glossy back, for example. And even though this is a very affordable smartphone, I feel like it looks and feels a lot more expensive. So overall, Motorola did a great job working with the materials that they had to work with. But on the left side of the phone, we have the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card. On the right side, we have volume up, volume down, and also the power button, which doubles as the fingerprint sensor. And then up top here, we have the noise canceling microphone. And then on the bottom of the device, we have the 3.5mm headphone jack, microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and we have the speaker. And then on the back of the device, we just have the camera module, Motorola logo, and that's pretty much it. But this concludes my review of the Motorola Moto G 5G 2023. This has been a great device, and if you're not looking to spend too much money, but you still want a very capable smartphone, then I think this phone certainly is worth considering. Of course, there's a lot of competition out there and a lot of companies offering budget phones, but again, this is one that I feel like they did a nice job. There, of course, are compromises where there needed to be compromises to meet the price point, but at the same time, it's a high quality device, and I think will suit the needs of most people out there. But this concludes my review about this device. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, but I will see you in the next one. Take care and have a great rest of your day.